Good evening and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines here in the south. Divided we stand, how Brexit has split family, friends and neighbours. The fallout from the EU referendum here and in Westminster.
In the air, Heathrow, Gatwick or elsewhere, why a decision over Britain's new runway is likely to be delayed again.
On the right lines, how a much-loved railway has been given a new lease of life and an exciting new future.
Putting the boot in, the South Coast Iceland fans hoping their team can freeze out England's footballers. Good evening. So where on earth do we go from here? Well, that's the question being asked by both sides of the Euro referendum debate as shockwaves of last week's vote continue to reverberate around the south.
Yes, few predicted the sheer magnitude of the turmoil that has resulted. The Conservative Party fragmented, David Cameron standing down as Prime Minister, Labour tearing itself apart as MPs heap blame on leader Jeremy Corbyn, and growing uncertainty in the financial world.
Well, in a moment we'll have the latest from Westminster and the Tory MPs considering the leadership challenge. First though, what are the consequences for the real people, you, your neighbours, your relatives and friends? Mary Stanley has been canvassing opinions.
Luncheon club at the Salvation Army in Southampton with just one topic on the menu. The EU referendum has divided friends here, as a voluntary show of hands reveals.
So how many people voted to remain in the EU? How many people voted to leave? And having seen what's happened since Thursday, does anyone now regret that decision?
No. So definitely no regrets, despite many blaming the older generation for the leave result.
It's not our fault. We were pushed into it, really, weren't we? That with common market and what have you, you know. We didn't know what we were letting ourselves in for. We didn't know that they were going to try and rule us, which we don't want.
Does it worry you about all the uncertainty?
Too old to worry about it these days. You know, we've had our life. These young people didn't bother to vote, did they?
I'm really disappointed, and I just don't know where we're going. It just seems a total mess, and I expected that's how it would be.
At the hairdresser's, casual talk of holidays and the weather has gone, replaced by more serious debate.
I voted in because I'm thinking of the future for my grandchildren, and I don't think it's going to be the same.
For the general election, obviously you have to have an overwhelming majority, and for this it was a few percent that there was the difference. So I feel like it would be a good idea to have a second referendum.
Debate too in the Polish community, who met together in Brighton for the first time since Thursday's election. The South is home to hundreds of families who moved here when Poland joined the EU in 2004. Many now fear they'll be forced to leave.
Some of them, I suppose, they are a bit scared and just, feel a bit unsafe a little bit.
Many people are talking about it, and I feel like they don't want my family here or the other Polish community.
But Barbara Story, who works for SOS Polonia, a group which gives help and support to migrant workers, voted leave and believes it's a positive move.
I'm not a traitor. I'm supporting my Polish people, and I'm happy for them to be here and to work together and to grow together in a greater Britain.
The country has changed at alarming speed, but the divisions will take much longer to resolve. Mary Stanley, ITV News.
Well, to our political correspondent Phil Hornby now in Westminster for us. Phil, the Cabinet met this morning the first time since the referendum. I think the question that worries everybody, is there a plan of any sort for where we're actually going to go?
I don't think there is one, certainly at the moment, but Mr Cameron has told the House of Commons this afternoon there will be one, and he's putting the best brains in Whitehall together to come up with it.
The Cabinet met this morning and agreed the creation of a new EU unit in Whitehall. This will bring together officials and policy expertise from across the Cabinet Office, Treasury, Foreign Office and business departments. Clearly, this will be the most complex and most important task that the British civil service has undertaken in decades.
It does appear that neither wing of the Tory government has an exit plan, which is why we're insisting that the Labour Party be fully engaged in the negotiations that lie ahead.
Yes, MPs from our region came back to Westminster for the first time today and coming to terms, really, with the enormity of what happened last Thursday night. This was the day things were supposed to get back to normal, but it won't be business as usual here for quite a while. A Tory government drifting along with a lame duck Prime Minister, an official opposition party disintegrating before our eyes, the referendum winners in search of a plan they can agree on. The big, unanswerable question everyone's asking, what on earth happens next?
We need to just stand back, take time, cool heads, because nothing's going to happen in a hurry.
There's so many different ways of doing it. But
is it going to be as bad as people like you were saying during the campaign?
I never said it was going to be bad. I've always run a very positive campaign. But it's not going to be easy. There's no doubt about it. It's not just going to be straightforward. We've got to decide which, and also it's up to the EU, of course, to decide whether they want, which bits they want us to be involved in.
Meanwhile, the Labour Party melts down and the South's most senior Labour MP says time is now up for Jeremy Corbyn.
As far as Parliament is concerned, I think Jeremy's position is quite untenable. There is clearly a position now where most of the shadow cabinet have resigned and there clearly is not a great deal of support for Jeremy continuing as leader in the parliamentary party, but of course it's more complicated than that because he's leader of the Labour Party in the country.
So Labour could end up having two leaders, but if you think that's going to be tricky, it'll be a piece of cake compared to the job facing the new Tory leader, the new Prime Minister. You keep referring to the next leader as a he. Could it be a she?
Or she.
Could be a she.
Very possibly she. It could well be a she.
In other words, it could be the Home Secretary Theresa May. Tory MPs queuing up today to back her to stop Boris Johnson.
Phil, you've mentioned Theresa May and Boris Johnson. Will there be other candidates?
Yes, the way it works, any Tory MP who wants to can stand for the leadership. MPs here at Westminster whittle it down to two, and then that short list of two goes out to the membership of the Tory party in the country. Tonight it looks like it'll be Theresa May versus Boris Johnson, but history tells us the favourite rarely wins these sort of contests.
And Phil, as you say, the Labour Party is disintegrating. What on earth's going to happen there?
Well, they're in a real mess. Basically, they have a leader who's very popular with the membership, very, very unpopular with the MPs here at Westminster. They want to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn as a matter of urgency because they think if there is a new Prime Minister, Theresa May, Boris Johnson or whoever it is, by the end of the year they might call a general election. And Labour MPs, most of them, want rid of Jeremy Corbyn before that happens.
Phil, for now, thank you.
Well, the decision on whether Heathrow will get a third runway or Gatwick a second is now back in the air. As a result of the Brexit fallout, the government was due to decide next month.
Well, bosses at Heathrow thought they were just days away from their airport being chosen for development. That is not going to happen just yet, if at all. Gatwick would become the favoured option in its place, with a decision due possibly this autumn.
But would a Prime Minister Johnson resurrect his dream of a Boris Island airport? Or could Stansted become Britain's hub airport? Campaigners living under the flight path say they're delighted with a delayed decision. This report from our transport correspondent Mike Pearce.
For those under the flight path, uncertainty remains. A decision expected next week on a new runway at Gatwick or Heathrow is almost certainly off until we get a new Prime Minister. Front-runners Boris Johnson and Theresa May oppose Heathrow. Boris is not keen on Gatwick, although Mrs May's view on the Sussex airport is less clear. But if Boris does get in, he could well order a new review of his island airport in the Thames estuary. He's also known to favour Stansted as an alternative.
I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Boris Island back on the agenda as a result of this vote, or if not Boris Island, certainly an expanded Stansted, because Boris Johnson is not keen on either of the options put forward in the Airports Commission report, Heathrow and Gatwick.
While the uncertainty goes on, both airports and campaigners are sticking to their positions.
Well, we don't know when a decision will be forthcoming from government. Whether it's now or whether it's later on, we'll still be ready. We're ready now to press ahead with that development. So whenever the government is ready to make that decision, we're ready to proceed.
We just do not know. It's very difficult to guess what's happening. Would the existing Prime Minister want to make a decision before he leaves, or would that decision be subject, of course, to amendment by whoever is appointed in the future? Very difficult question and not one we can guess.
Well, sadly, it will create yet a further delay, and I say sadly for all parties concerned, because we do need a decision as quickly as possible. In terms of what happens, really will depend on who we see come forward as leader of the Tories.
Meanwhile, low-cost airlines warned today fares could rise or routes cut if we don't keep current agreements with the EU. The poor exchange rate continues, with Gatwick offering £1 for €1 when commission fees are taken into account. While the airports continue to battle their case, we won't have a final decision almost certainly until we get a new Prime Minister. Mike Pearce, ITV News, Heathrow.
And we'll have more on the EU referendum debate a little later, because Emma Wilkinson has been to a school in Hampshire to find out what tomorrow's voters are making of it all.
And we'll have a selection of your views that you've been posting on our Facebook page.
And of course, there's plenty on our website as well. Just go to itv.com/Meridian. You can call us or get in touch via Facebook or send us a tweet at ITV Meridian.
First, though, a quick look at some of the day's other news. Hampshire Police has launched a nationwide appeal for a man wanted in connection with a murder in Southampton in April. £10,000 is being offered for information leading to the arrest of Kevin Suka, who's 23 and from London. Michael Freshwater was found dead at a flat in Westridge Road.
Rogue parking companies have left more than 1,000 cars in a boggy field near Gatwick Airport. The businesses offer secure, reliable and affordable parking for air passengers. In fact, they've been leaving the cars unguarded in the countryside. Hundreds of ignition keys were found in the boot of one unlocked vehicle. Sussex Police and Trading Standards officers are investigating.
There's a new weapon in the war against potholes on Hampshire's roads. A new repair vehicle called the Road Master is being trialled. It's operated by one driver and can repair hundreds of metres of road in a single shift. In April, Hampshire Council was given an extra £1.5 million in funding to fill 30,000 potholes over 12 months.
As promised, back to the EU referendum now, and the result will have a profound effect on the lives of millions of youngsters who are not even old enough to have a vote on their future.
Indeed, our reporter Emma Wilkinson's been to the Petersfield School in Hampshire to find out what they've been making of that decision to leave.
We are leaving the EU. How many of you think that's a good idea? Raise your hands.
None of these pupils had a vote in the EU referendum, but many of them feel most of those who didn't speak for them.
Everything is going to change for us, Moni, and it's going to impact us.
Earlier this month, the school had its own referendum event. 2 Hampshire MPs on either side of the debate were questioned by children with a lot to ask and a lot to say.
I'm a very strongly agree with languages, and I do want to live abroad in the future, and that's going to be harder.
There's pros and cons on both sides, but I do think that both sides should have been better communicated.
I still feel confident that leaving the EU was a good idea, but in the short term it's not so good at the moment.
Even though the effect won't come on now, I feel like people haven't really thought about what's going to go bad after we have left.
My parents both decided to leave, and I feel quite strongly that we should have remained.
When the school had its own mini-referendum, 61% of the 920 students who voted wanted to remain in the EU. And most young people who voted in the real thing felt the same way.
Research shows around 3/4 of 18 to 24-year-olds who voted wanted to remain in the EU. Compare that to the over 65s, only 39% wanted to remain.
But it's been suggested turnout in that age group was significantly higher. We can't know for sure what proportion of young people voted, but some analysts believe it was less than half.
It doesn't matter how vocal you are, how personal your thoughts are. If you don't vote, that's your chance to make your decision, the right decision for your future, wasted.
But why doesn't the message seem to be getting through to young people of voting age?
I think politicians really have to actually talk to young people, and they have to talk to young people about the issues that actually count to them. And I think politicians really do have to take that very, very seriously and to stop doing the politicking, which we actually see happening a lot.
What the future holds for these young people is far from certain, but what's not in doubt is they care deeply about it and want their voice to be heard. Emma Wilkinson, ITV News, Petersfield.
Well, many of you have been airing your views on our Facebook page. Thanks very much for that. June Target says although she voted to remain, she accepts the result. She adds, my disappointment lays with each political party. The general public needs mature leadership.
Buster Larkham asks, why do the Remain voters keep saying that people who voted Leave are racist?
Amanda Mole says the media must stop reporting so negatively on the result. It's making matters worse, she says. Hopefully not us.
Susan Collard says, I stand by my decision to leave. I think it's the right decision, but it wasn't a competition. So instead of the nastiness from a lot of people who wanted to remain, why not all join together to make England strong again?
Thank you, as always, for all of your views.
And the fallout from the referendum dominates the ITV Evening News. With the details, here's Mark Austin at Westminster.
The Prime Minister says the UK will leave the European Union in its own time. David Cameron says the result of the Brexit vote must be accepted and the economy was strong enough to weather the storm. But the financial turmoil goes on, with the pound plunging yet again. And Labour engulfed in crisis. Almost all of Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet has resigned. Join Mary Nightingale in the studio and me here at Westminster. That's at 6:30.
Now, more than 70,000 people die every year because of coronary heart disease, and it's the UK's biggest single killer. It affects 2.3 million people across the country.
Well, one of those who managed to fight off the disease is a former professional dancer, Anthony Mitchell, who has started a national dance competition to raise awareness of the disease. Here's David Wood.
Aged 26, an infection damaged Anthony's heart. It meant he struggled to walk short distances and often felt dizzy, let alone dance. And he feared that even after open heart surgery, he'd never be able to perform again.
When I got the diagnosis and you hear that you've got a heart problem and that you're going to have open heart surgery, there are a lot of different emotions that you have. But I think it wasn't a case of could I dance again, it was would I get back to the level that I was dancing previously. And so I was doing a lot of training before. I was dancing 4 or 5 times a week. Would I be able to get to that point again?
And 8 years later, he has. He believes a positive attitude is the reason for his full and fast recovery. There are a number of heart diseases, but coronary heart disease is the UK's biggest killer.
There's many lifestyle factors that increase the cause of coronary heart disease, including smoking, inactivity, and sedentary lifestyles.
To raise awareness and funding, Anthony has created the Dance Elite Championship. Now in its second year, performers of all ages and dance backgrounds are invited to take part. And the competition is tough.
There hasn't been anything out there that truly puts every dance style on an even platform to shine, and that's really kind of what the premise of the UK Dance Elite Championship was going to be, is that actually when you look at how incredible tap dancers are, flamenco dancers are, that they can compete and are just as if not better than the street dancers, commercial dancers that we see more on TV.
Anthony says he's lucky to be dancing again and hopes his passion will help others realise the risks of heart disease. David Wood, ITV News.
And you can find out how to enter on our website, itv.com/Meridian. Entries close on Wednesday.
On to football now, and England take on Iceland tonight in the European Championships, with a quarter-final place against home nation France waiting.
Yes, but not everyone here in the south will be cheering on Wayne Rooney and his teammates. Iceland may be the smallest nation to have ever qualified, but their fans don't want the Euro party to end, as Andrew Pate found out.
Right here in the middle of Brighton, a little slice of Iceland. Serving up a slice of Icelandic cake and other Nordic fare, like pickled herring on rye bread or the twisted donut. And some Icelandic football fans. When Iceland qualified for the knockout stages, the fans and the players certainly enjoyed themselves.
I don't really usually watch football, but it's just like I don't think my heart can really cover. I need more aspirin, but it's just been so amazing. We're such a small nation. We've never been through to anything like this ever before, and you're just so proud. That's the thing, you know. And like tonight, we're playing England, which is like our favourite team, and wow, it's amazing.
Can Iceland do it tonight? What are your thoughts?
Of course. We've got nothing to lose. We're going to get it. We're definitely going to give it a shot.
The match is again being shown on Brighton Beach. England fans hoping they will be cheering again, like when Roy Hodgson's men beat Wales. But the Icelandic fans will be on Brighton Beach too. And the owner of the Nordic Cafe was in Paris last week to watch her side see off Austria. What was the atmosphere like?
It's great, really, really, really good. Just everyone was really excited, very patriotic, obviously there.
And people went crazy.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, absolutely nuts at the end. It's great.
England v Iceland is on ITV this evening, 8 o'clock kickoff. Wayne Rooney and co hoping little Iceland don't cause a big scare. Andrew Pate, ITV News, Brighton.
Do you know what they say in Iceland?
What do they say in Iceland?
Comma at England! Come on, England. Or perhaps they don't. Staying with sport, Southampton striker Sadio Mane is set to join Liverpool for a fee of up to £36 million.
Yes, the Senegalese frontman had a medical at Anfield today, with the deal likely to be announced tomorrow. At the weekend, Saints signed winger Nathan Redmond from Norwich for around £10 million. Nice work. While Frenchman Claude Puel is the hot favourite to become their new manager this week.
Now, exactly 40 years ago this week, a group of railway enthusiasts got together in rural Dorset and decided to do something about the fact they'd just lost their branch line.
The Wareham to Swanage line had been ripped up in a matter of weeks by British Rail in what's now generally seen as a short-sighted policy of railway closures.
But now, as Martin Dash reports, it's soon to be reconnected with the National Rail Network.
Timber framework. Still cladding on the outside of it.
If you want to know what 40 years feels like, then come down to the workshops at Swanage and meet Beryl. The little shunting loco was the first train acquired by the volunteers when they decided to bring their railway back from the dead. Here she is being brought to the sheds in that long hot summer. They had to relay some track to get her here, and they never stopped until they'd put back the whole line from Swanage to Wareham. Pete Frost is the teenage volunteer with the 70s haircut walking in front of her. Here he is driving a locomotive a few years later, and here he is today with Beryl, who's looking a little worse for 40 years of wear.
I started working on the Swanage Railway when I was 17 years old, and I think my first footplate ride was about the age of 4 or 5, and I never looked back. It always had a fascination for me as a child.
When they started rebuilding the railway, they must have felt like a snail at the foot of a mountain. But now only a few remaining strands of red tape stand between them and a link-up back with the main line. Today, Pete's driving this 1960s diesel train up the line to give some guards a chance to familiarise themselves with the finer points of the route. 2 trains like this are currently being upgraded. They'll carry the passengers and commuters onto the network. For now, we have to stop at the light. Beyond lies Wareham and the main line. Their goal, so close now.
From 40 years ago, when the first few volunteers came and set things up, their vision was to get to Wareham. There's been obstacles in the way, of course, but the sheer effort to get the track laid and now this bit to get to Wareham is the icing on the cake.
That all this has been made possible by a team of volunteers makes it all the more remarkable. Along the way, they've refined their amateur enthusiasm and anorak knowledge to create a potent professionalism which now fuels the operation.
When you look at what it takes to run a railway, very dynamic system in the modern time, we have to blend heritage railway with modern systems. We're just about to make the final step. There is credibility with the way the railway is managed, and I've seen a lot of colleagues sadly not see this day, so we're doing that for them. The operating aspects of this railway are aligned with operating with the network, and it is now a reality. We can do this. We will be doing this.
If patience is a virtue, then the people of Purbeck are righteous indeed and deserving to finally be at the end of their line. Martin Dowse, ITV News.
Let's chug straight into Simon Parkin now.
Very good,
Yeah.
I like that.
You've got some double-headed trouble.
Yeah, double-headed trouble. Yeah, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
And occasionally you see an animal and you think, well, you know, it just doesn't look quite right. As happened to Paul Blackmore when he was climbing Mount Snowdon. And you think, well, hang on, a two-headed sheep, surely they must be quite rare. Apparently not, because look, Roy spotted one as well. He called his a push me, pull you. That's EWE. Clever, eh? He also found a brave swan who was prepared to stick its neck out, or two necks, as the case may be, at Thatcham Nature Discovery Centre. Someone we only know as Doris took this picture of a two-beaked starling who was having a bath in her garden, whilst Debbie Bowers in Hedge End managed to catch sight of a two-headed baby Canada goose in the New Forest. It's sweetly. Meanwhile, at the other end of the scale, Craig in Sussex did a bit of dove spotting, found two bodies, no heads. Look, but how about this for odd? Janine Ball has something living at the top of her 9-foot tree. It's a fox, look. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. How does it get up there? Or maybe it's got exceptionally long legs. Meridian weather at ITV.com. Any other odd animals, we'd love to see them.
Summer about to burst forth?
I sincerely hope not.
Why? Let's find out. Simon Parkin.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe. Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Well, now, I hope you're not thinking that every day this week is going to be like today, because unfortunately things are destined to stay unsettled, all because of our old friend the jet stream sitting right across us and dragging in low pressure systems, and with the low pressure come various weather fronts, and that means more showers or rain at times. Certainly tonight it's a quiet night. Temperatures a little bit cooler than the last few nights, down into single figures in some places, so on the plus side should be a bit easier for sleeping. And tomorrow morning, well, there might be a bit of patchy mist first thing, but that'll soon disappear, and then we're off to a dry and fine start. But fairly quickly we'll see the clouds start to push in from the west, and then we'll see the outbreaks of rain arrive, and as they work their way eastwards, some of them will be on the heavy side. A lot of surface water spray, particularly tail end of the afternoon. Temperatures tomorrow, because of the cloud coverage, bit disappointing, 17-18 degrees. As for your high tide times, well, you can see in Brighton around 5:15 in the morning, then just before 6 in the evening. And then, well, Wednesday will be a dry and fine start, but more rain will turn up later. Thankfully, that'll rattle through pretty quickly as well, though. For Thursday, a generally dry day, but mostly cloudy, with more showers on Friday.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather. Keeping a close eye on summer. The Pollen Count, sponsored by Ilogy Eye Drops.
Well, I'm sure you know the rule by now. Dry and fine weather means a very high grass pollen count. So, decent start tomorrow, sees levels high, but they will drop as the rain sets in. And that's the plan later in the week too.
And in just a moment here, we've got the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale in the studio and Mark Austin at Westminster.
Stacey Poole's got our late news. Do join her if you can. But for now, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you as always very much indeed for watching. Take care.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.